Should I start with yours, Mr. Chair?
Sorry?
Start with yours or the other one?
Whichever
Okay.
you desire.
I will start with AB 643. First of all, thank you for joint authoring it. It's great working
AB
with
645,
you.
actually.
645.
Thank you.
Sorry. That's right. See? Thank you for joint authoring it, Mr. Chairman. California is the leader in reducing greenhouse gases from electricity generation while maintaining an affordable and reliable electricity system.
Move the bill.
Mr. Quirk makes a motion. Mr. Ting seconds the bill.
Then I will just say that RPS has been a resounding success and is a primary work of California's work on climate change, and we should continue that work.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. California's global leadership on environmental policy has created tens of thousands of jobs for construction workers in some of the most impoverished areas of our state. In fact, in the Central Valley alone, our apprenticeship programs are booming. They're accepting more apprentices. Just the iron workers alone, I'll leave just basically to talk about the IBEW programs, but just the iron workers alone, 200 new apprentices were accepted into the program. And that is a result of the energy production, utility scale solar projects that are being built in the Central Valley. It couldn't have happened at a better time. During the throes of the economic recession, that was the only employment opportunity for our members during that time. We had about 60% unemployment in various areas, but when there was work on utility scale projects. For those reasons, we strongly urge your support of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We're going to have three main support witnesses, Mr. Williams, so you want to decide who they are? Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry to put you on the spot. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Friedman on behalf of the Utility Reform Network. The RPS program as it exists today is the most successful clean energy program in the state's history, and we've been proud to support it since its inception in 2002. As of the end of this year, more than 12,500 megawatts of new renewable generation will be coming online just for the procurement commitments made by the three major investor-owned utilities. Many of the early concerns about cost, adequacy of transmission supply, and also adequacy of resources have not been borne out. The utilities are ahead of all of the applicable targets and appear to be on course to meet the 33% targets well in advance of 2020. New renewable procurement is showing results at prices that are competitive with fossil fuel generation, which is really kind of remarkable. So from our perspective, the 50% targets for 2030 are achievable, they are realistic, and we do not believe that they're going to have material impact on cost. They will provide an insurance policy for consumers, and that's why we support the expansion of this program.
Thank you, sir. One more support witness.
I'll be quick. Justin Fanzel on behalf of the Coalition of California Utility Employees, the California State Association of Electrical Workers, the Western States Council of Sheet Metal Workers, California State Pipe Trades Council. As Mr. Diaz noted, jobs in California in this industry have grown, not just for the iron workers, but across all of our client list. 300,000 jobs because of the RPS. This is a great opportunity to continue to work on things that we've learned since we passed the first RPS, get it even more right, and continue to grow new jobs, green jobs in California. We ask for your support. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Looks like there's a lot of supporters. Please just name, at this point, just your name, affiliation, and position on the bill. And everybody at this point will be in favor of the bill.
Erin Niemela, representing Large Scale Solar, also in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Amber Blix with the Independent Energy Producers Association, also in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Melissa Cortez Roth on behalf of the California Wind Energy Association in support.
Thank you.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Thank you.
Julie Malinowski-Ball on behalf of the California Biomass Energy Alliance in support of the bill moving forward.
Thank you.
Matt Klopfenstein on behalf of the California Solar Energy Industry Association in support with amendments.
Thank you.
Andrea York on behalf of the Clean Power Campaign in support.
Thank you.
Christopher Castrillo on behalf of Advanced Energy Economy in support.
Thank you.
Laura Wislin with the Union of Concerned Scientists in support.
Thank you.
Pierre Delforge and Natural Resources Defense Council in support.
Thank you.
Brian Riley on behalf of Environmental Defense Fund in support.
Thank you.
Gareth Elliott with the Solar Energy Industries Association in support.
Thank you.
Kelly Catlett with the California Hydropower Reform Coalition in support.
Thank you.
Rebecca Lee on behalf of the Office of Ratepayer Advocates, also in support.
Thank you.
Jan McFarland on behalf of Energy Source in support.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition to this bill? No one wishes to speak in opposition to this bill. Afternoon, Mr. Shaw.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Committee members.
You're right. Good evening.
I believe we crossed the
We have.
evening hour.
I think we have.
Michael Shaw with the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. The goal to increase renewables is certainly part of our program to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. However, we have concerns that arbitrarily increasing that threshold, that requirement to 50%, puts a number of things at jeopardy that are a great concern to manufacturers. First of all is the price of electricity. Currently today, we are spending about 74% above the national average for the price of industrial electricity. That is an increase over from about 54% about 6-7 years ago when RPS initially went into effect. Now, it's certainly not to say that RPS is solely responsible for that increase in the premium California manufacturers have been paying over the last several years. But it is to note that this policy went into effect around the same time, as did AB 32. So those things working together certainly had some effect. Arbitrarily increasing that to 50%, we're concerned would increase that premium even further, making California even less competitive as a state for manufacturers. Manufacturers of any type of product, including green technologies as well, which we know are often developed here in California, but ultimately manufactured elsewhere. In addition to that, one issue of great concern to manufacturers is the reliability of the grid. We all know the infamous duct chart and other things that probably shouldn't be mentioned in the Utilities Committee anymore, but the issue is if we do not have a reliable supply of electricity, that puts manufacturing processes at great risk. In fact, some processes, if interrupted, effectively lose the entire product in the manufacturing line. So if we shut down a process, there potentially millions of dollars of product can be lost in that process. Moving forward, we believe that there are a number of tools that we need to look at that can help balance out a lot of these issues. Expanded direct access certainly helps manufacturers control energy costs, provide greater balance, as does opportunity for greater distributed generation, which gives, again, manufacturers more control over their electricity investments in the product line. And we are opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Amy Mago on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce. We echo many of the same concerns of the manufacturers, so I will not repeat all of those. But we do also appreciate the value of electricity from renewable resources. However, simply increasing the RPS without taking a look at our current program to see where changes could be made, we think is one of the flaws of the bill. And in addition, we also think that we're concerned about the cost increases, and we need to look in the future with more flexibility, as well as we need to look at the need for flexibility and also a more integrated grid. So.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any tweeners?
Heidi Barsuli on behalf of San Diego Gas and Electric. While we don't have a formal position on the bill at this time, we do believe that it's time for California to look at ways to achieve overall climate objectives from a more global perspective, which will likely include reevaluation of existing mandates and utilization of a more comprehensive approach to achieve carbon pollutant reductions. And as we continue to refine those policies moving forward, we recommend that we treat all load-serving entities equally, participating in all the clean energy mandates equally with the same requirements and consequences for noncompliance. We think the state should be exploring all alternative fuels and alternative fuel vehicle infrastructure that will be necessary to address the GHG emissions and criteria pollutants that are produced by vehicles in California, and the state should consider revising rules governing energy efficiency programs so that resources can be used to incentivize bringing older buildings closer to code, not just used exclusively to bring buildings above code. We look forward to working with the authors to develop a framework that will achieve GHG reductions while also managing costs, creating jobs, and ensuring grid reliability.
Thank you. It's one tweener. We'll hear from two more.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Nick Pappas with Southern California Edison. We also have no formal position at this time, but appreciate the opportunity to comment. SCE supports moving to 50% renewables in the context of climate policy, which means an inclusive, integrated energy policy which gives consideration to all the greenhouse gas emission reductions tools we have in the toolbox. That means not just substantial investments in renewables, but also strategic expansion of distributed generation, investments in energy efficiency, and investments in transportation electrification. Meeting higher levels of renewables means we must address market and operational challenges such as overgeneration and reliability issues. To do so effectively, state policy must adapt to ensure more holistic, integrated strategic planning. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. One more tweener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gil Topidi with the California Municipal Utilities Association. We're very supportive of the concepts raised by both SDG&E and Southern California Edison representatives. Our key concern right now is that the structure of the RPS bill language speaks to 50% of retail sales must be from eligible renewable resources. I have members, some of them are smaller members, who get 51% plus of their power from greenhouse gas emissions-free resources. It's large hydro in a lot of respects. Hydro resources that come from federal hydro procurement resources. Those members who are at 51% of greenhouse gas emissions free will be confronted with the issue of, what do I do to comply? I got to get rid of something that's equally good, maybe arguably better, more reliable in some respects, if I want to have a renewable, eligible renewable resources in my portfolio. They don't add up, and our fear is that we'll have to let go of some of existing resources that we're already contract with to meet the new obligations of a 50% retail sales RPS. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Name, affiliation, and position, please.
Davina Flemings on behalf of Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and we have concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Mr. Chairman, members, Will Gonzalez on behalf of SMUD. We have no position right now. We're very supportive of the goals. We hope that they can be in the context of carbon and not just megawatts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mario DiBernardo from the Northern California Power Agency. We have concerns as articulated by the previous witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Ms. Garcia?
More a comment. I'll keep it really brief. I appreciate what the author's doing today, and I think it's definitely in the right direction. I just want to make sure as we move forward with this target of 50%, and we are thinking about flexibility for the ISO. Currently, there's peaks where we have too much energy, and we have to convince folks to take the energy off our hands by paying them. And so as we're moving forward, that we are taking that into consideration and making sure that we are possibly looking at how to integrate the grid across multiple states or regionally so that we're not having to pay folks to take this energy off our hands.
Well, I definitely agree that grid integration is a big part of this, and I appreciate your comments. I think that we have to think about, though, grid integration not just about solar, but and paying for solar that we may or may not be using, but also want to remind folks we also pay for natural gas in the same way. When the duct chart, a lot of people like to talk about the duct chart, right? But the scale of overgeneration in the spring that's illustrated by the duct chart is still dwarfed by the amount of energy required during peak loads in the summer, late summer. That comes from dirty old power plants that we have to ramp up. Sometimes we have to run those power plants for 12 hours just to get 1 hour worth of energy. And our consumers, our ratepayers, pay for all that ramp up. So we don't just pay for renewables that we don't use, we also pay for natural gas we don't use. And so if we want to make sure that we aren't having those inefficient times, we first have to address the undergeneration of renewables in the summer while we are trying to integrate battery and other technologies to make sure that we have a use for the overgeneration in the spring.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Other questions? Mr. Patterson?
I just wanted to,
I have the same kind of concerns that the chamber and the CMTA raised, and also the tweeners, and just would appreciate if apparently this is going to move forward, to really pay attention and really try to work with those that are raising the concerns with respect to the reliability, with respect to cost, and those kinds of things. The reliability of the grid and the cost of electricity is absolutely at the heart and core of California being able to be competitive. So, I mean, I'm hoping that those who have expressed some modifications or some reservations would be heard. I think I've been to several of the CFE events where this has been a significant area of discussion, and the idea of attacking this in greenhouse gas emissions rather than in the procurement and the generation, being technologically agnostic, having all at the table, and also targets rather than mandates. I think those were suggestions that a lot of those that are going to have to make this work are requesting to be considered. So would appreciate if you had an open ear and open heart for some of those concerns.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Hadley?
Yes, just a question for the author about not so much this hearing, but as this bill goes forward. Is your personal view, is your preference for the same kind of relationship between the legislature and the regulators between now and 2030 that has been the case between 2006, 2008, and now, essentially that the legislature just sets a target and moves out of the way and turns this over to CARB?
No, and in fact, Mr. Hadley, I think that it's the case that if you ask anyone that's been around this building for very long, I tend to not do bills that are overarching goals and tend to be doing the ones that figure out, and sometimes in a nitpicky, micromanaged way, of how to meet the goals. So I do I tend to more look at implementation bills than the goal bills. This one is just too important, and it's too proven of a policy. And I do applaud the 5 largest utilities for being willing to look at a clean energy standard and supporting some of the goals, but I'm not yet convinced that that has a solid enough proposal to replace a proven policy like RPS. RPS has worked. If the goal was price stability, the goal was California jobs, and the goal was clean energy, RPS has worked.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
If I can just make one further comment. There are absolutely reasons why we as a state did this in AB 32 and elsewhere, and why we're considering this now. But expensive electricity is not a jobs program. The jobs that are lost in whole communities and whole regions and whole industries of this state as a result of electricity that's much more expensive than the national average and more expensive than it needs to be is not a jobs program. So we absolutely have work to do to balance our environmental goals and our economic goals, and to do that in the most efficient way possible. But expensive electricity is not the way to create jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Ting has a question.
More of a quick comment. Just wanted to again applaud the author and the joint author for this proposal. I think it's long overdue. I think if we had looked at this debate over 15 years ago when we started off with a 33% goal, most people thought that was unattainable, that it was not even possible. And we sit here today right on schedule, having attained that stretch goal, and I think that we continue to need to push the energy industry to stretch further. In terms of the duct chart, the grid integration, I think I look at the technology industry and the biotechnology industry as really a model. We are using very old technology, very outdated technology. The game changer in this industry that would really render the duck chart moot was really storage. If we could actually store the energy, which is long overdue, then actually all that energy that's produced at whatever time could be stored and used at a later purpose, at a later time. And I think that's really what we should be doing. We should be pushing, just like we had a discussion at the, a few speakers ago about pushing innovation, really catalyzing innovation. I think we have to push industry to, again, try to continue to develop technology, utilize technology. That's really what is stopping grid integration. I think it's not because we have too much renewable energy. I think it's really a lack of innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Are there any further questions? Would you like to close, Mr. Williams?
Yes, I'll just briefly answer the question of price. I think that's been brought up.
Yes, sir.
And I think, first of all, you have to witness that the two biggest advocates for consumers, both the Office of Ratepayer Advocates and TURN, are here in support. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason because price stability is itself a goal. And while we have been fortunate that natural gas prices are low right now, that has not always been the case. It nearly bankrupted the state, the volatility of natural gas prices. And the diversification of supply is always good for price stability. And that's borne out by the statistics that the 10 states with the greatest share of generation from renewables averaged a retail electricity price of 9.79 cents per kilowatt in 2013. That is below the national average, and that is well below the 10 states with the lowest share of generation from renewables, which averaged at 10.28 cents per kilowatt. There is a way to do this cost effectively. We have many issues in integration to make sure we can do it most effectively, but RPS is part of those policies.
Thank you. And you asked for our aye vote.
Ask for your aye vote.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. The chair's recommendation is do pass. Do I have a motion and second to do pass and re-refer to natural resources? I'm sorry, I already have a motion from Mr. Quirk and a second from Mr. Tang. Please take the roll.
The motion is do pass and re-refer to natural resources. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Patterson? No. Patterson, no. Ashadjian? No. Ashadjian, no. Bonilla? Aye. Bonilla, aye. Burke? Aye. Burke, aye. Daly? Eggman? Aye. Eggman, aye. Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley? No. Hadley, no. Hernandez? Jones? No. Jones, no. Quirk? Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Ting? Aye. Ting, aye. Williams?
Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Daly, no. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think you missed my vote. Hernandez, aye.
Thank you.
That bill has 9 aye votes. It's out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
One more bill, Mr. Williams, AB 1094, energy usage.
I'm here to present AB 1094, which directs CEC to set goals for reductions in energy consumption by plug-in equipment. Obviously, especially as we pursue policies to mandate clean energy, one of the most cost-effective ways to do so is energy efficiency.
Ms. Garcia moves the bill. Second. Mr. Ting seconds.
The quantified goals in this bill will lead to target-driven planning across existing programs with and transform the plug-in equipment market at the pace and scale required to meet California's energy and climate goals. Unlike the previous version of this bill, which did I set my own mandates, we are making sure that the proper regulatory body is helping to set these. I ask the chair and the committee staff and thank them for working with me and my staff to craft amendments that I will take in Natural Resources Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. You're allowed 3 opponents, 3 support witnesses. Go for it.
Chair Rendon, committee members and staff, Over the past few decades, we made great progress on the efficiency of new buildings, but while we've been busy focusing on the building themselves, the ground has shifted, and the 50-plus devices that people bring with them into the buildings and plug into outlets and power strips now account for two-thirds of residential consumption when looking at just electricity, not including natural gas. The problem is that we haven't adjusted our policies, priorities, and resources, and this bill aims to address this gap. We cannot achieve a clean electricity grid cost-effectively without a stronger focus on two-thirds of residential demand and some of the cheapest energy resources. I often get a question, don't CEC and DOE already have appliance standards in place to deal with plugins? Well, they do. But the reality is that appliance standards are not keeping pace with the rapid growth and evolution of these devices. And on the CPUC side, efficiency programs are missing in action on plugins. They only represent about 4% of program spending versus about two-thirds of consumption, a gap that needs to be fixed. This bill proposes a simple and results-oriented approach by setting targets and letting the agencies work with stakeholders to identify the lowest cost solutions to achieve the goal. So in other words, it's flexible and non-prescriptive. The bill would bring a whole host of benefits for the environment by helping cut carbon, economic benefits by saving customers, consumers and businesses money in their utility bills, particularly for low-income families who benefit the most because they often use older and less efficient equipment like a 25-year-old fridge that they can't afford to replace, and they spend a higher share of their limited disposable income on wasted electricity. And finally, it would benefit the California industry and jobs by developing the market for plug-in efficiency technologies and services. For these reasons, NRDC respectfully asks for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman and members, I'm Bob Raymer representing the California Building Industry Association. I'm also here today to indicate the support of the California Business Properties Association. We support this measure. We particularly like the provisions that put the CEC, the appropriate state agency, in charge of the development of the action plan and its implementation. And more importantly, we are very familiar with the CEC stakeholder development process and their administrative code adoption process. We've been working with that for well over 20 years, and we support that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Anthony Harrison with the California Energy Efficiency Industry Council, and we are a statewide trade association of over 70 non-utility businesses that design, deliver, and implement energy efficiency products and services in California. We support this bill and recognize that plug load consumption from residential contributes significantly greenhouse gas contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions in the state, and dealing with this is something that has to happen if we are to meet those goals, and so we ask for your support of the bill.
Thank you. Now, at this point, let's just hear from support witnesses. Just please give your name, affiliation, and the fact that you support the bill.
Yes, Kevin Messner for Political Logic. I represent the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, and we support the bill, but don't have time to go into why.
Thank you.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Thank you.
Will Gonzalez on behalf of SMUD in support.
Thank you.
Valerie Vlahos, PG&E in support.
Thank you.
Tamara Raspberry representing the San Diego Gas and Electric Sempra Utilities in support.
Thank you.
Nick Papa, Southern California Edison in support.
Thank you.
Brian Riley, Environmental Defense Fund in support.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Should free up a couple of these seats.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Kelly Jensen representing the Consumer Electronics Association. We are opposed to the bill. As you may remember, last year this bill passed this committee and died in the Appropriations Committee mainly because of significant cost. The former chairman, Mr. Bradford, passed to the governor and was vetoed a reform bill, which was very helpful to the industry, and we'll continue to talk to the author about incorporating some of those important measures in his approach. I will say that the author's office and the sponsors have been very generous with their time. This morning we had a conference call with NRDC and the author's office, and we continue to have discussions, but we are opposed to the bill currently.
Amber Blix with the Independent Energy Producers Association, also opposed. As we understand the intent of the bill, it's to look at the energy efficiency associated with plug-in equipment. Unfortunately, as currently drafted, we think that it may have the inadvertent effect of regulating electric generators. So the amendments that are proposed for committee today, we think help tighten the language, but they still don't alleviate our concerns. So we would like to continue to engage with the author's office, and I'd like to echo that they've been helpful in kind of listening to us. But given the current language, including the amendments, we're still opposed.
Thank you.
Michael Shaw, California Manufacturers and Technology Association. With the amendments that were proposed, it does change some things. We are continuing to look at the bill in that context, but we do have concerns over directing the CEC to do something they already have the authority to do and are actively pursuing in a number of different areas, including things like computers, monitors, and servers. So they are pursuing energy efficiency standard increases for a number of different products, and we think that in light of that, having a bill, directing them to do something like that, it really becomes unnecessary. Get the GHG emission standards that were previously in the bill, we think would be unnecessary because electrical generation is already covered under the cap and trade program. I think that would be duplicative, confuse the situation, hide the costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Please give your name and affiliation. Is there anyone who is a tweener? Any questions for the author? Would you like to close, Mr. Williams?
I would be honored by your aye vote.
Thank you. The chair's recommendation is do pass as amended. I have a motion for Ms. Garcia and a second for Mr. Ting. Please take the roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to Natural Resources Committee. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Patterson? No. Patterson, no. Ashajian? Aye. Ashajian, aye. Bonilla? Aye. Bonilla, aye. Burke? Aye. Burke, aye. Daly? No. Daly, no. Eggman? Aye. Eggman, aye. Garcia? Hadley? Aye. Hadley, aye. Hernandez? Jones? No. Jones, no. Quirk? Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Ting? Aye. Ting, aye. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. 9-3.
That bill is out, Mr. Williams. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Ting?